Hi. So I'm using an umbrella here because I'm low-key scared of one of these bats pooping on me. This is not an irrational fear because it actually has happened. Not once, not twice, not even thrice. Another not so irrational fear that I've had for the longest time is publicly sharing my opinion about something and later realizing that I was wrong or that I no longer agree with what I said. And so a lot of times I've shied away from sharing my views and opinions about a lot of things because I just feel, what if I have a different opinion about this in some months or years to come? I didn't want to be that person who would say something and then a while after I'm singing a different tune. And there is a wisdom to that. If you are too quick to always share your view and opinion about every matter, you run into trouble a lot. The heart of the godly thinks carefully before speaking. The mouth of the wicked overflows with evil words. There is more hope for a fool than for someone who speaks in haste. But I realized that I was so concerned about the future that I wasn't living fully in the present anymore. And while I tried to convince myself that it was because I didn't want to lead people astray by the things I had said in the past that I don't believe in anymore, the truth was I was afraid to be seen as someone who didn't know everything. And as the root of this was pride. Because it takes a lot of humility to say that, hey, I was wrong. I used to think like this before, and now I think like this. The only thing constant in life is change, and change can be such a beautiful thing. There is a thrill I derive when I go home after I've been gone for a while and I notice the little changes that have taken place since I was last at home. Or when I visit an old neighborhood and I see a new house being constructed or a signboard that wasn't there before. A lot of times, change points to growth, and if you are so afraid of change, you just might remain stagnant. But the thing about growth is you must be ready to make mistakes. And that could be a tricky thing when you are growing in public because everyone else can see the mistakes too. Sometimes I watch some of my older videos and I just think to myself, if I were to film this today, I probably might have worded that differently or I might have said something else entirely. But then if I were to wait until I had all the right knowledge before starting my channel, I still wouldn't have started by now. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, just go ahead and do whatever you want without a care because you are still growing. There should be a sort of wisdom in how you approach what to do and what not to do, especially when you have some influence over others. And by the way, everyone does. But at the same time, don't be too crippled by fear that you stop yourself from doing the things that you know you should do or the things that you want to do, because you soon realize that the fear of appearing wrong or foolish can make you exactly that. Recently, I made a decision that involved me doing something that I have had to speak against in that sense in the past. Not that this thing is wrong, but the nature of where I was at that time did not allow it. I remember speaking with a friend about it and telling her how I kind of felt like a hypocrite, even though I knew I wasn't. I felt I didn't want to appear fickle, saying one thing today and doing the opposite tomorrow. But the more I sat down to process this with myself, I realized that most of this fear was rooted in the thought of, oh, what would people say? But I had forgotten that no matter what I do, no matter what anyone does, people would always say. Daily reminders, it's all in my mind. Oh, why do I Getting rid of this fear is easier said than done, especially in this world we live in. It's funny how people can be so quick to move on, but at the same time can remember the past with a single click when they want to. And when you muster up the courage to speak against something you once did, or vice versa, they dig up relics from your past with incriminating evidence that can easily pressure you into remaining silent. You will understand what I mean when you see people being bashed on social media for an ignorant opinion they voiced 10 years ago. Not that I have experienced this myself, but I feel like I can empathize with people who desperately want to move on, but people still keep on associating them by their past. Because being a believer, I would not intentionally do anything that I believe is against my understanding of what God's will is for me, simply because I don't want to be held down by the opinions of others. So let's be clear, that's not what I'm advocating. But a person who lives in constant fear of, oh, what will people say, and their approval or otherwise of their actions, cannot even live in obedience to the will of God. And so I'm learning that it's okay to do things differently. It's okay to grow. It's okay to evolve. Sometimes our ego would want to get the best of us and would want to make us stick with what we are used to, because after all, it is what we are used to. It actually takes a great level of maturity to stand and say, hey, I used to think this way before, but now I think this way. And this starts from the little things. From having a new opinion of a food you once tried and hated, or to a person you once had a wrong impression of, or an hobby that you once thought was lame. So give yourself room to be wrong sometimes, and stop letting your past hold you back.